Hey, this is Max. I am back with another CSR2 video. Today it is the Tempest 3 T1 car, the Mazda MX-5 Miata. This is the car you're forced to use for the Tier 1 event for Tempest. I have completed that event, and here's the Trackster, which I won from Sneak. A very nice car that I'm still in the process of waiting for parts on. But what I wanted to do tonight was to show you the setups I used to complete this event with this Mazda Miata. I am not recording the entire 50 races and then showing you everything in detail. What I'd rather do is teach you how to set up this car, because everybody's going to be stuck with this car. How to set it up to kind of make life easier for yourself during the event. The Mazda is one of those cars that, despite the fact that it's super slow in T1, it is a late nitrous, high acceleration at the end of the track type car, which means it's good for getting the speed trap challenges and will not have too much of a problem, but it is not all that great for 0 to 60, but it still has just enough grip that it shouldn't suffer during those tests either. I completed the entire event without losing, well, I shouldn't say that. I lost one race because I was distracted and looking at a Facebook chat as I'm racing. I was a little overconfident. I ended up hitting nitrous in second, and I did lose that one race. But other than that, none of the challenges were really that difficult. Now, mind you, I did have a good start on fusions. Since the Mazda RX-7 came out, I've been saving these Mazda fusions and not really putting them on the RX-7. So for the green fusions, I had pretty much every type of green fusion, and I was short about 4 blue ones to start, mostly intake and tire when I got into the event. So I might be better off than you. If you're a newer player, you might not even have any fusions. But let me show you my setup. I know there's setups floating around on Facebook. I did not follow those. I used my own particular technique, which I'm going to explain to you as I do this, which is essentially what I call a minimum PP maximum evo tune and setup in the way I structure my modifications that I pick. So you take a look at what I have here. In any T1 car, the TNT, the nitrous, the tire, and the trans are always critical to the car's performance. However, because the Mazda is one of the cars that accelerates late in the track, actually you don't use nitrous until third, you don't need a huge amount of grip in the beginning to accomplish what you want at 285 pp. The goal gaps are this: is 285, 300, 310, and then 325. I'm going to give you the setting for each of them, how I set it up, and each time I was beating the target times by quite a significant amount. So it's not until you get to the 325 pp range that you actually have to retune for the challenges. And that was just more or less to guarantee I won't make it through those challenges. So let's take a look at what I did here. The notion for a lot of guys that are building at low PP level is to have sort of an even out spread on the part upgrades. 2 tiers of this, 2 tiers of this, 3 tiers of that. I don't do it that way. What I do is I maximize the ones that I feel are the most efficient and most important upgrades, and therefore I'm running full stage nitrous, full stage trans, third stage tire, because the third stage tire allows me to squeeze in more engine upgrades, which actually contains fusions that give a decent amount of evo. By doing this, I'm ignoring turbo, intake, and body. And the reason I did that is this: body, although it has a lot of fusions you can put in, the weakness on body is this: it increases your PP too much per body upgrade stage. Watch your PP jump up. That is 7 points. Stage 2, another few points. By stage 3, it does more points. So you're pushing a lot of upgrades, and you're losing the PP rating very quickly because you have a cap, right? You're trying to keep it at 285. Now the difference is this: if you really look at some of the other ones, such as turbo, you can put 2-3 stage of turbo and it bumps it up a little bit, same as 1 stage of body. You see where I'm getting at? You don't want to install stages that are going to bump your PP weight up and doesn't give you a lot of benefit in the process. Now, the way I did this is I tuned obviously to the maximum EVO that I can. Um, you're also considering your target times that you're facing. You can make nitrous slightly slower and actually bump that even more. And what you have is now at 285, you're running a 13.5. You have a 5.826 0 to 60, and that's going to be your speed challenge. You have a top speed of 108. That's going to be your speed trap challenge. So you have your 0 to 60 acceleration challenge, which you're already doing 5.8 or better. You have a quarter mile speed of 104 approximately. You may be able to beat that by a little bit by driving it right. So you start off with a pretty good position in the challenge. Now let's do 2 test runs to confirm what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you how to run it when you're doing the speed trial, how to run it normally, and how to run it for the speed trap test. So anytime you're doing one of these speed trials, you want to get on the nitrous right away. You don't have to wait till red line to shift because you want to almost hit 60 as soon as you hit the end of second. Now you can retune to do that, which will give you probably a slightly better 0 to 60 if you top out right at 60 miles at second gear. But you don't have to do that for 285 pp because in the beginning the challenges are very simple. So your 5.8 is going to be more than enough to beat the challenge. I actually beat the 5.8 by about 2/10. I did a 5.6 0 to 60. That's good enough to make it through the first 10 races until 300 pp race without an issue. Now, let's look at the second thing. You need to run this time or close, right? So how do you do that with this car? Well, this car is a late nitrous car. So you run it on on third shift for the nitrous. So what happens is you have to launch it perfect. This car likes to be perfect launched. So once you get that, you can shift near perfect or deep good, and then you wait till 5K and launch the nitrous. That gives you, in the lower PP range, your best acceleration. Now, the other thing you want to not do is don't shift out of fourth. Leave it in fourth, run it all the way down the track in fourth. Obviously, I'm running a half versus a quarter. I would have done the quarter a long time ago. But there you go. There's your best possible time, 13.585. Now, I'm not saying that was the optimal drive. If you do it just right, you should be able to come right dead on or even slightly better than the actual time that you're running. So that's the second thing you're doing. Now, I can tell you right now the maximum speed trap you're dealing with at the 285 pp range is only 75 miles an hour. So I really don't even need to show you how to get better than 104 mile per hour, which will actually beat every speed trap trial all the way to the end. So as long as you're doing over 100, you have no problem with the speed traps. But how would you get a better speed trap if you really wanted to get it? Well, the way you do that is get the nitrous on just a little bit later. Okay? So instead of 5, we do it like 55. We shift out of it slightly quicker, and then we let it ride fourth out. That'll push you to the limit of fourth gear. Right now, that's still going to be 104, but later on, it can bump it that little extra depending on your tune. So you will run the later speed trap trials at almost 111 miles per hour near the end. But here you have 104.6. The dyno tells you it can only do 104.2. So you're going to beat the dyno slightly. So that is your 285 pp tune and the 3 ways that you get those trials done. When you get through the 10 races, the final race from the boss is going to be the toughest one. But it's actually not that bad. It's in 285 pp. I forgot what he runs, but I know the 13.5 will actually allow you to beat the 300 pp final run against Rico. So you definitely don't want to cut it that close on the next series. So let's upgrade to 300. So we know, looking at what I described earlier, that if you throw body on, you're going to lose a ton of your upgrades real fast. It'll hit 300 almost instantly. In fact, it'll go over it. So you don't want the body again. You're going to leave that off. You don't need to touch the tire yet. We have plenty of grip, right? We're not accelerating with nitrous until the end, so that grip is fine. And you're not suffering right now at the 0 to 60, so no reason to worry about that. So what do? You add power on. Whoops, too much. Dump it down to stage 4. 299. Now, can we combo this in some way to get 300 exact without losing more stages? Well, bump the turbo. Look at that. Not even 1 pp for 2 stages. That can't hurt you. Before we go to that, next one, let's see if we can sneak in stage of intake. No good. So, can we get stage 3 turbo in there? Because we still got 1 pp to play with here. Not quite. It'll bump it up. So, what you do is now you're looking at stage 2 and stage 4 engine. That'll put you at 299. Is that going to be good enough? Well, we have to tune it to find out. Remember, if you don't hit 300 exactly, it's not the kiss of death. You can still do it. Now, another way to try to do this is you could bump down 1 more point here and then see if intake can get you to 300 without the turbo. That becomes a tuning challenge of which one gives you more ultimate performance in the end. If you notice, what's interesting is by fitting stock, I actually gained PP. That can be a good thing, right? So what happens when you start adding stuff? Well, it looks like there's a balance somewhere here between turbo and intake to give you the best benefit at 300. So I would bump down certain parts just to get to that point. But I think 299 is good enough. There's no reason for us to have to push 300. So what I ended up at is 299, but now I'm going to tune it. So we know that Rico at the very end of the 300 pp range challenge runs about a 13.6. Without fine tuning, you're already running a 13.4. So you know you're going to beat him, which is all that's important. Now the next piece is, can I tune it to get more out of this car at this pp range? Absolutely. You have more power, so you're going to have a little bit higher top speed too. So you bump up your final drive to get yourself the margin of error that you need. Look, we're almost up to 350 some, and it's still going. Oh, it's going down. All right. So there's your close to optimal, but now let's see if we can increase the grip a little bit. More is not necessarily a good thing. 351. 13.42. That'll beat Rico no problem. 5.659. It's going to be faster at the 0 to 60. And now you're trapping at 106 almost. The 300 versus the 285, the challenges are not that much more difficult. So with a 5.6 or better, you should have no problem beating each of the speed trials. And again, this will get you through the next 10 races without headaches. And once again, if you want to just get the speed trial done quick, launch early, see if you could ride. Now we should, we didn't quite get 60. So that killed that time a little bit. If I bumped it just enough to get that 60 miles, you could have ended right at 60 miles an hour in second gear. That would have given you probably the best 0 to 60 challenge result. Now, since I shifted really late, this might be like a 6.0 0 to 60 because of what I just did there. But again, it's not bad at all. 5.7. All right, so it's not 5.6. I actually, in the actual races, got about a 5.6 or 5.5 out of this. So no problem there. Again, you can run the 13.4 without an issue, and you will be running the 13.4 at almost 105 miles per hour. So you'll have no problem beating the speed trap test either. You'll be able to just kind of, oh, see, that was a good start. That's going to hurt me on the performance. You're going to run the nitrous, but this one will not be a 13.4. It's going to be closer to like a 13.5, 6 or 13.6 almost, because when you don't launch perfectly, you lose about a tenth. All right. It's probably not going to be terrible, but it's definitely not going to be as good. Oh wait, how about that? I beat my estimations by quite a bit there, almost close to dyno. Okay, I take that back. I was wrong, but generally speaking, you still want a perfect launch. If you don't have a perfect launch, you could be costing yourself quite a headache when you get to the Trackster challenge at the final. So practice that perfect launch throughout the 50 races that you're playing with. All right, so now you've gotten through 300 PP range challenges. There's your 10 races. We're now bumping up to 310. Again, I leave the body out. I'm really just focusing on adding power. And the quickest way to add power is obviously adding stages for stuff that gives you power, turbo and intake. Now, if you just go straight to stage 5 on these, you notice you're going to bump over it, but stage 4 will usually help you stay right at 310. I'm ignoring intake right now, but really it's kind of a balancing act, because we know that turbo for some reason actually gives you one less PP when you first bump it up, so it's better to just kind of stick with turbo for now. It should do the job. When you bump up the turbo, you added more power, you didn't add grip, therefore your top speed should change again. You should be able to play with this to see if you can get better than 369. Let's add a little grip. Going up, as long as it's going up, keep increasing that grip. So this will get you into now the plus 400s Evo, and that's important. Extra Evo, better performance. Now it's going down. 35 is where we're going to leave it at. Actually 36, I think. 36. Let's take a look at the dyno. 13.1. Okay. In the 310 range, I believe in the final run, Rico run, something around the 13.3 or 4. So you're no update, thank you. I'll wait an hour. So you're looking at about a 13.4 in the final challenge. So you shouldn't have a problem here either. Even if it goes down to a 13.2, your car's running 13.1. It's going to beat that. Okay. So now your 0 to 60 has improved once again. Now in the 310 range, your 0 to 60 speed challenge gets a little tougher. I believe it is still not quite in the 4-point ranges, but it's obviously more than what it was, quicker than what it was before. But you shouldn't have any problem getting it, because again, you have more power, and this car needs every little horsepower it can eke out of the modifications you're putting on, because it sucks. Okay, without the power mods, this car just can't get out of its own way. So you want to put the power mods on. We're down to 5.162 on that particular challenge. I will quickly check to see what the actual challenge should be. Around that time, I believe it's pretty good for 310 range, which is race 30 or so. Okay, so I believe the speed trial is still at about a 5.7 range. So you're still doing good here. Now, the next bump up is a big one, and that one gets you into a situation where things are going to get difficult, because the actual challenges really start to change, in that the 0 to 60 challenges went down to a 4.6 second and change, and the speed trap challenges go up to 90, not quite 100, but it's definitely up in the 90s range. So let's take a look at those. I'm going to now bump up stage 5. Then I'm going to bump up the intake. That only puts me to 314. I got a lot to play with here. So what next? Well, now it's time to start thinking about putting some tires on. Uh-oh, too much. How about stage 4? Bam, to 323. No, it's not 325, right? It's not perfect. But do we really need it? Because if you try to add a stage of body, it's going to push it 1 point or 2 point over. Leave it out. Don't worry about being a point or two short. What really matters is what the tune performance gives you. And the tune performance at 323 is enough to get you where you need to be. So, looks like more grip is what we're going to need. This one, you can drop the grip to about 12 now. 639, okay? That will put you at a 12.642 with a 4.994 second 0 to 60. Now, that is not optimal, right? I already told you the target time is 4.6, so what can you do? Well, for this one, if you really want to retune, and you probably should, you're going to retune to beat that time by adding grip and nitrous. It looks like it's going to do poorly when you do that, but what happens is your second gear right now optimally should hit about 60. If you just tweak it enough to hit 60, now it changes to 4.675. How about that? So let's run it. How do you do this? Same as always. You're going to drop the RPMs down on perfect and hit nitrous right away. So same deal as before. Hit nitrous, except this time second gear will hit 60 and you're done. That should beat the 4.6 time that the computer says you're able to do, mainly because you're using nitrous earlier than what its estimate is. The 4.6 is actually estimating you probably running nitrous starting around second gear. We're running it outright out the gate. And what that gives you is a dyno beating 0 to 60 of 4.238. You can do even better than that because I actually didn't launch perfectly, but you can get as low as a 4.1, which I did do during my trial runs, but I think the dyno, on my particular one, I ended up with a 4.2 something, but you could get as low as a 4.1 something, which will more than crush any of the final 0 to 60 challenges you're going to face for the rest of your races. The other piece now is this. Rico runs a 12.7 at the very end here, but as you saw from my earlier setup, if you set the nitrous back to 4.1 or 4.2, 4.1, right there, okay? You keep this here, and you start bumping up the grip to get that PP level, EVO level up, and then all you have to do is tweak this by about a point or two, and now 12.643. Can you do better than that? Actually, I think you can. It's probably going to require you to play with the parts again. So what you can also do is you go back to the parts and you can trade some turbo for some intake and see how that works. This is how you find your optimal setup, because let's say, oh wait, my turbo intake's already maxed. So this is probably the optimal for my setup anyway. You could, for grip purposes, you could put this up and then drop some of this to compensate, but I'll tell you it's going to be hard. Here's why. Intake additions really doesn't change your EVO that much, whereas that higher one really changes it a lot. So yeah, so you're probably looking at about facing a 12.6 run to deal with Rico's 12.7 something. So you got to drive it right. Again, now with all this additional upgrade, you're still looking at about a stage 4 tire versus a stage 5. So you can still kind of do what you were doing initially, which is you let the car go and try to put the nitrous down a little bit closer to 5K, and then let it ride the nitrous out in 4th gear. It'll hit about 109 to 110 depending on how late you push the nitrous, and it'll still get you through the gates in the quarter mile at a time that will definitely beat Rico on the 40th run. Okay, 12.693. I think I can tune it better. I might be able to play with this a little more, but I'm pretty sure this is more than enough to do the job. Okay, so 12.643. For some reason, I keep remembering when I did it, it was 12.5 something that I tuned it for. Maybe my memory's fooling me, but I do know that Rico's race against me at the end was close, but he couldn't catch me because he's about a tenth slower at his best. I think it's a 12.7 and change that he runs. So that brings us basically to the end, right? We're now looking at the final races. Can we make these final ones and take down the Trackster? Well, you're going to need every fusion. You could be short 2 or maybe even 3 rear fusions, depending on which ones you're short on, and still make it, but it's going to be really, really tough. And I don't like to have that close a margin of error. If I were you and I just didn't get the right fusions at the end, I would think really hard about sitting on this event for a low bid. Pull some bronze crates, keeping your fingers crossed, every which way to wait for another few Mazda fusions. You want to have full fusion when you take them on. Here's why. Even with the absolute maxed out Miata, with all fusions, with optimal tune, you will only be able to get about a 12.0 out of this car, okay? Which is how I had, how I had mine set up was right here, where I had, what was that 750? I know I had it a second ago. Oh, 2.66. Okay, so 2.66, 12, and 4.1. Now 4.0 doesn't help. I don't want the nitrous too short, because then what happens is your timing of the nitrous has to be almost perfect, and that reduces your margin of error. I don't mind 750 because it'll do the job anyway. So I left it at 4.1. So what the car tells you it can do is a 12.103. Now if you drive it perfectly, this will give you a 12.1 something. You need to beat a 12.209. So your chance of losing is still there. You make a mistake on the launch and you will lose this. Okay, so on this one, basically you shift and nitrous, not quite together, but almost immediately after you shift, you just go ahead and nitrous and ride the car to the end. That is going to be your best possible time. I'm not saying it's going to beat the dyno, but it should be very close. I am not one of those world record drivers, so I don't make, I'm not so anal about my little ship points that I can get world record runs. All I want to be able to do is get something like this that'll beat the Trackster and get that car into my garage. Now you notice this is a 4.512 second 0 to 60. It will do better than that. Again, nitrous in first, you will be able to defeat the final 0 to 60 challenge, which is in the 4 point something range as well. I believe it's a 4.3 or 4.2, but all you have to do is nitrous and write it out in second, and you're done. That will give you most likely a 3 point something 0 to 60, and you'll have no problem beating that requirement. The final speed trap is only 100 miles an hour. You saw it did earlier 111, no problem there as well. So once you're fully built, you should have no issue with the final 10 races, and you should be able to beat all challenges and get that Trackster into your garage. Again, I remind you, you need to be careful how you shift the car and how you launch the car. Definitely do not use nitrous any earlier than third gear. You will lose a ton of time, you'll lose the run. The other thing is launch perfect or very, very tight to perfect. If you launch too late or too early, you will lose a tenth or 2/10 on your run. So with that tuning method and the particular upgrading pattern I did, I went straight through the 50 races with very little stress. None of the challenges were really difficult to meet, and I was able to win the Trackster at the end without super nitrous. So I hope that this will help you in setting up your car for those particular challenges. Obviously, we're all stuck using the same car, so you can copy what I did and you should be able to get similar results. That is, of course, again, fusion dependent. If you're missing too many fusions, you may have to play with the settings that I'm using and maybe go with a completely different upgrade route to get to the particular PP point. But I do know that the upgrade route I used made life pretty easy for me all the way through. Well, and that ends my rambling about how to set up the Miata for Tempest 3 T1. I sincerely hope that this will be very helpful to you and will help you get through Tempest 1 and win the newest king of T1, the Ford Sneaks Trackster, which fully upgraded is supposed to run something along the line of 11.7 flat. Okay, I thank you for watching this. Please feel free to comment, ask questions. I'm more than happy to answer them for you. And if you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing something like this for the other tiers as well. The difference is this: in the other tiers, you may not be using the same car I'm using, whereas T1, you're definitely using the Miata. So do subscribe to the channel so you can get update notification when I put the next video up. And finally, again, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.